Hi everyone, Tally and Farrell here from Board of It, and welcome to our preview video for Zoo Tycoon, the board game. Now here we have a prototype copy of the game which we were very kindly sent, and it's for 2 to 4 players. And in this video we're going to briefly tell you a little bit about how it plays before telling you what our thoughts are about it. In Zoo Tycoon, you'll be managing your own zoo, paying particular attention on balancing the popularity of your zoo with conservation and animal welfare efforts. And if you recognize this brand theme, then it is in fact based on the kind of old school popular computer game, Zoo Tycoon, and Microsoft have actually given the license for Zoo Tycoon to make this game, which is pretty cool.
Yep, so first I want to apologise for my voice in this video. I've been pretty sick this week and I think you can hear it. I'm sure it's annoying. And the second thing is I'm going to head off some questions that you'll obviously have. Question number 1, is this a Ark Nova copycat clone? No. Actually, despite them having 2 scoring tracks with basically the same name and both being about running a zoo, they're actually quite different in feel, and there's not a lot of one in the other.
Yeah.
They really approach it from different ways. And also this has been in development for like 3 years. Question number 2, is it any good? Yeah, it's actually pretty good, and we're going to get into why after we explain how it plays. So to begin describing the game, the easiest way is to describe the animal cards, because these are kind of core to everything. So you've got the kind of popularity they're worth, which is one of the scoring measures that will help you win the game. Their education value, which is kind of a separate track that moving up will just give you some bonuses and points on the other 2 tracks. Then you've kind of, some of them are related to different national parks, and if you collect all the animals from one park in your zoo, you're going to get a bonus. Then this is how many of them can be in 1 square hex tile, which you'll see in a minute. This is how much each hex tile with them on costs for your running costs. And here is an important part. You can see they're different between the lion and the macaws. And basically this tells you who can live with who. So macaws are friendly, and any number of males and any number of females can be mixed because the animals will be male or female. And over with the lions, you have beta, which means that they're beta males. So you can have any number of males as long as it's not female, otherwise they'll fight. Or you can have 1 male and any number of females. Alternatively, there's also alpha, which I don't think, over here you can see where you can only have 1 male and any number of females. Then lastly, this just shows if they can have additional animals, which are these little tiles, attached to their enclosure, or if not, because obviously lions and these wildebeest probably don't go together. Is there anything else? Yeah. So what you're kind of trying to do is make these animals happy by giving them good enclosures. So this is kind of how long you've been working with the animal, and it goes up round by round. So you have experience with it. This is how much free space they have. So the macaws would like 1 free space to be mildly happy, and 2 or more free spaces. And these are just spaces in the enclosure with nothing on them. So the enclosure tiles, which you'll see. This one is retreats, which are little buildings you can build for the animals to kind of go in and hide. So the more the happier they are. Finally, this is how many other animals of the same type are in with them. So, macaws, they want 5 or more to be really happy. They like being social animals. The lion, even more so, 6 or more to be fully happy. And you actually can't start taking new animals if, from the higher levels 1 and 2, if you have any of your kind of animals in the yellow. So you want to make them happy before you can move up to bigger animals.
Okay, so now we're just going to briefly go through how a typical round will play out in the game and just talk about the different phases a little bit. So there's 4 phases within a round, and there are 8 rounds, but there's a kind of half starting round in the beginning where you don't do all of the actions, and then the last round is just basically endgame scoring. So 6 kind of full rounds. And in the beginning, there'll be an event card drawn, which will change the rules of the game in some way. So maybe you can't intake birds or something like that for that round, or maybe the player that has the most mountainous animals gets some kind of bonus. And then there'll also be offspring. So your animals, if they are happy enough and you have prerequisites for kind of male and female pairings, you'll roll for them. So you roll some dice, and the happier they are, the more easy it is to get a success, let's say.
Yeah.
And then they will produce offspring. So each animal has a different number per success. So some might only produce 1 baby per success, or just 1 baby, actually an entire offspring round. Whereas others, the ostriches, might produce 3 babies. So the babies are represented by the small cubes, and you can choose throughout the rest of the round to either make them into fully grown animals, but of course then they take up space, or in the next round you can choose to have them leave your zoo. So following on to the next round, you'll renew the market, which changes the demand and supply of each animal. And then, as I mentioned, you can choose to have animals leave your zoo, which may be the babies that you don't have space for, or it can be fully grown animals that you decide that you can't place anymore or don't want to place. And then you have the chance to take new animals into your zoo. And you can also take the ones that other players have left. So in this instance, somebody decided they didn't have space for 2 of the baby black bears. Another player could then decide that they wanted to take them.
Just to mention, so usually, like you say, you have to consider if you want to keep them or give them away. But for the level 3 animals, which I think are the kind of endangered animals, you can actually reintroduce their offspring into the wilds. Once you kind of contribute, once you have enough, you will then get some conservation points. So that's quite interesting, because it's like, do you keep them? Do you give them away? But part of the reason you might want to give them away is just that sometimes you can only have like 2 animals. Like you can't have more than 2 of a type in an enclosure, no matter how big it is. So if they have a baby, you can't keep it.
No.
Like it's impossible within the rules. And other times, having more animals increases your costs, but it doesn't increase the money you get. Because once their popularity only kind of moves you up the track as soon as you build it. It doesn't matter if you have them. 1 or 6, right?
Yeah, exactly. So it's always a bit of a trade-off, because some animals, you do want more animals in your zoo to make them happier, but like you said, for like snow leopards, you can't have more than 2, so you have to have them leave. And then you just clear the market, and then in the 3rd phase, everyone will get some enclosures to use in a subsequent build phase. So everyone by default gets 3 free enclosures, and then other players who satisfy certain criteria might get a bonus or 2, different enclosures or more enclosures. And then you have the opportunity to take a loan, but the main part of the game is the build phase, which then happens in this phase, where everyone will kind of go off into their own zone, I guess, into their own zoo, and work on building up and expanding their zoo. So that could be introducing the animals that are in the holding pens that you just took from the market. It could be improving the conditions for the animals that you already have. So introducing new retreats for them, expanding their free space, adding more animals so that they have more animals that make them happy. Yeah. So it's all about kind of the improvement, expanding. You can also build different buildings that will get you points on the tracks, like education and conservation buildings. And you can also build restaurants and gift shops, which will reduce your running costs. So it's all about the trade-off of expanding your zoo, because that's going to get you popularity, but you also need to ensure that your current animals are happy, because you're going to get points for that in the end, the happier your animals. But like
it costs money.
But it costs money.
It's expensive to keep animals happy.
Yes, they will have different costs as well.
I mean, we just give our dogs cardboard boxes and they seem pretty happy, but...
Yeah, don't. Buy all those expensive toys. They just want to rip up cardboard boxes.
Yeah.
Maybe these animals could take a leaf out of their book. But yeah, anyway, that's the kind of bulk of the game, really. And then you move into the final phase where you'll just get some experience points because you've had the animals in your zoo for longer. And then I guess just some sort of end of round admin like taxes.
Yeah, you just sort your income, right?
Sorting out your income, resetting some things for the next round.
Yeah. So you basically, with the income, it's your popularity and it's kind of bracketed with money. And you subtract your running costs, which you incur from the animals and buildings and blah, blah, blah. So when you've done the kind of 8 rounds, you will see who's won. And you have 2 tracks, conservation and popularity. And you look at them both, and whichever is your lower track, and you know where it is, if it's on 29 points on conservation, that's your lowest score, that is your in-game score. So you have to do good in both tracks. You can't neglect one, because otherwise you're probably not going to win. And it's also quite interesting because throughout the round, there's a lot of points where you'll check who is top of one of the 3 tracks, or even sometimes like another like goal, I guess, who has the most savanna species, and you'll get a bonus for that. So it's quite competitive in terms of who is on top of what, and you don't really want to neglect anything because the bonuses are quite useful because it's quite a tight game.
For sure.
But yeah, so now we will go to what we think. Zoo Tycoon is a delight for gamers like us. First, you've got really excellent components. You've got these individual meeples. It's very thematic and the artwork is really pleasant. Even better, the gameplay is intricate, it's competitive, and it's definitely a very thoughtful kind of game where you have to weigh out all the options, which we really like. Now, it is medium to heavy, and it also plays in around 2 hours, even at 2-player. But the good news is that adding more players doesn't necessarily increase the length of the game, because the most time-consuming part of the game can be done simultaneously, the building. Yeah,
exactly. And the actions that you do in themselves are actually quite simple, but it's the game itself which is quite intricate. And that's because taking simple actions like taking animals from the marketplace is fraught with different requirements and things to think about. We do also really like how a lot of the focus of the game is about keeping your animals happy, giving them more free space to roam, considering whether they are happier alone or in a group and things like that. It's also a really tough puzzle because you can only take the level 2 and 3 animals, which are worth more popularity points, until all of your existing animals in your zoo are content enough. So it's kind of a tough decision as to whether you concentrate in the beginning on making your existing animals content enough so that you can take those level 2 and 3 and those kind of big stars like the snow leopard in the future for big points, or whether you just concentrate on getting more of those level 1 smaller creatures but increasing your popularity steadily instead.
And that touches upon one of our favourite aspects, the competitiveness. We've already said about how we really enjoy the different tracks and the fighting over them, and the fact that you're getting all these little rewards if you're best at it constantly, multiple times throughout a round. You also have the donor cards, which have you be the best in a certain category, and these change each round, meaning the goalposts shift, and it keeps things interesting. And another kind of great aspect to this is the end game scoring goals. They're all about who does something first or best, which means even in the quiet moments, the solitary moments of the game, you're interested in what other players are doing. What animals are they getting? Are they going for the same national park as you? Are we in a race now? And it just, all of this together makes the game tense and tight and interesting and interactive. And it's more interactive than your average Euro, I'd say.
Yeah, the most solitary phase or moments is the building phase where you'll be designing your zoo. And as well established by the video game, designing your zoo is pretty engaging. You'll be tearing your hair out as to how to spend your free enclosure tiles, and likewise with what buildings and focal points to add. And that's because they're all kind of useful, but the money is very limited in this game. So you've really got to maximize your revenues and where to spend it. So it's a nice little puzzle that does require some foresight to really nail, but it's also really cool and rewarding to sit back at the end of the game and kind of assess how you built your zoo. Essentially, this is a game with a lot of tough, equally good choices. Nothing is by the numbers, so it's a really immersive experience. Let's take the offspring issue as an example. Males and females in the same enclosure can produce offspring, which is based on dice rolls, and that will temporarily improve your income. So for some animals, this can be a good thing to have offspring because you can turn them into fully grown adults. And some animals, the more you have of them, the happier they are. So it then means that you don't have to go back to the marketplace to take more of the same animal to make them happier, as you would have to do with an enclosure that only had one gender of that animal. However, it's very easy to end up with too many offspring, which can cause a bit of a headache because you need to consider whether you have enough space to turn them into fully grown adults and the kind of rules around alpha and beta. Because you don't want to have too many offspring in your zoo at the end of the game because they can actually give you negative points. The ever-changing market is also a really cool aspect because it, increases or throws in a bit of randomness, keeps you thinking on your feet, and therefore it throws in a bit of replayability.
So what do you need to know? Well, this is a very dense and intricate game, and even a simple action like take a zebra. Really all you do is you look at how many are on offer, male and female, and you take them. But there's so much you need to consider. It's very easy to realize later on that you've basically taken zebras you can't put into your zoo, or you can't afford, or you've made a mistake. And the first game or two people play of this, or three, will definitely be filled with little errors, mistakes, illegal moves, bad decisions, just because there's so many ramifications to think about. And a particular example of this is the building phase, because the timing here is kind of non-existent. It's all simultaneous. You do it in any way you want. And almost everything you're doing involves moving trackers up and down. And it's so easy to forget something in the kind of chaos of that phase. It's just hard to keep track of stuff at times. And the thing is, I want to say this, not that it's a fiddly game. The word I use is intricate because that's what it is. And a lot of the stuff that will trip you up is actually thematic. So it's not like I'm necessarily mad at it. It's just getting to grips with the game because, it makes sense that zebras are beta male, lions are alpha male, and, birds, they can live together happily. And I kind of quite like that aspect because that's a lot of where the puzzle comes from in the game. On the other hand, or the other side of the coin, all of this intricacy, it creates AP. So if you have a problem with AP, not a great game for that. I actually don't really suffer from AP. And the only game that's really given it to me bad is Spirit Island. And now this is as close as I've come to Spirit level islands of AP in any game I've played. But none of what I'm saying is a negative. It's just that you know this, so you can consider if it's something you like or not. A last aspect you need to know about is that there is randomness in this. And I mention it because I know some people don't like any elements of randomness in their 2-hour big Euro game. And here you have it in the marketplace because it shifts what's on offer and what's in demand each round. You don't know what's coming. So you can be caught out when you're trying to get maybe the last animal you need, or you had your eyes on a particular animal, and then it's not available next round. And that can be a little frustrating. The next thing is the offspring, and because you're rolling for the offspring, there's obviously luck. And I mean, we had a game where I was going for points by breeding endangered vultures because I wanted to reintroduce their chicks into the wild, and all I needed was a 3 or higher for the majority of the game. And I think before that, maybe a 4 for the first round or 2. I must have rolled about 10 times during the game. And each roll, I should have had a 2 out of 3 or a 50-50 chance at minimum. I only got 2 hits the entire game, which was barely enough to get me any points. And on the other hand, Tally was breeding ostriches, and it required a higher hit to get the baby chicks. And she kept getting it over and over and over and over to the point where it actually became a huge problem for her. And kind of messed up everything else she was doing because she had spent so much time getting rid of them, basically. So again, we don't really find it a problem. I think it's a nice part of the game to work around, but some people might be annoyed by that. Just keep it in mind. We're here with our zoo animals, and just before we get into final thoughts, just want to say that the gameplay is, I think, locked in because this is a prototype, but some of the design aspects will change. They've already realized that some of the animal meeples are too similar in color for the males and females, which is how you distinguish them, and they're going to alter that for a few of them. I think they're going to work on some of the stuff. The small little player cubes are going to be made bigger. I think some of the boards will be dual layered. And generally, a lot of our issues, let's say, are being tweaked or worked on, or might be a stretch goal. So I look forward to seeing the fully finalized product, because this is great as it is, and it's only going to get better with more usability. Yeah, definitely. So in terms of whether we recommend it, yes, we fully recommend it. If what we've said about the game sounds like it appeals to you in terms of being this kind of heavier weight Euro with lots of intricate details and decisions and, you know, a lot of tough dilemmas and decisions, puzzly, then I think you really can't go wrong with this. So recommendation from Board of It. 100%. And this is something we really look forward to playing after filming this video.
100%.
Like, we get to keep the prototype, which we're really happy about, and we're going to keep playing it because it's really fun, and I actually really want to show it to other people. Yeah. Just because, I mean, who doesn't like Zoo Tycoon, right? Yes. Yes. All right. So we hope this was helpful. If it was, please consider subscribing. If you have any questions, please ask us. And see you next time. And thanks for watching. Bye-bye.